record. There we go. So welcome everyone to the FCC PTA Grant Training. My name is Jenna White. I'm the Vice President of Communications for FCC PTA. Been on the board for several years. Also the parent of a current high school student and one FCPS graduate. Tonight, our new Grants, Awards, and Scholarships Chair, Charles Havazy, is going to be doing this presentation. He is highly qualified in helping you get grants because he has procured over $25,000 in grants for his former elementary school, Little Run Elementary School, where he was also the president for several years. He's now at Canterbury Woods for one of his schools. He has a kindergartner, a third grader, and a sixth grader. So we are delighted that he is on the board. He also, immediately after coming on the board, submitted the Fairfax County Council PTA grant to National PTA for Family Engagement. And we are we are sharing that grant with SEPTA, and together we are one of 10 recipients in all of National PTA. So that is very exciting that we received that grant. So again, he's highly qualified to help us all submit our grant. I'm trying for the first time to submit one for our high school. So I'm in the same boat as you guys, trying to learn and make sure that I do this for the fall National PTA grant. So with that, if you're just coming in, if you would please put your name and your school or schools plural in the chat, just so we have a sense of where folks are from and what age schools they're working for as PTA volunteers. And then be sure to put any questions in the chat. We'll either pause a couple times or I'll be saving them to answer questions at the end. So with that, I will hand it over to Charles.
Thanks for that great introduction, Jenna. And again, Charles Havazy. Put together this presentation. Jenna and Kara helped me out with it, so I give credit to them as well. I don't know, dozen-ish or so slides. We got a couple of examples towards the end. And so certainly would love for this to be interactive. If you're comfortable putting your camera on, that's great. If you got to unload the dishwasher now, that's fine too. So don't mind, obviously do what you got to do to multitask and keep life going. Yeah, when we get to the end, certainly please keep in your brain too, like if you got some ideas or that you want to just brainstorm with. We could even like stop the recording when we're done with the presentation, or we get to that when we get to that point, and just kind of give me some ideas if you want to bounce some ideas off of us, get some feedback. Happy to help with that. If you got some text you want to show, we can allow others to share screen, etc. If I feel like if I'm talking for the entire hour, then I've messed up, and I'd love to hear kind of some of your ideas on what you would love to do and how we can help you be better. Because coming as a 4-year PTA president up to council level, the idea here is, I was able to make a difference at one school, but there's 170 plus schools in Fairfax County Council, so would love to be able to share best practices and help everyone be better. So without further ado, admit Lydia. Okay, so there's who we all are. Jenna already introduced herself. Is Kara on the line too? If you just want to give a wave, Kara. If not, I think she was gonna. She might have had a conflict today, but she's our VP of training and helped me put together these slides. So let's see. So start off right away. Why are we here? Learn about grant writing, and someone's got an open mic there. Got some kids in the background, I guess, which is fine. We all have kids, or or love kids, or we wouldn't be here. So always in the context, we always like to bring up the National PTA mission. This is the whole idea, is to make every child's potential a reality, right? By advocating, dealing with families, communicating, etc. But the overall mission is of today's brief, a purpose is to talk about the grant writing process. Here's a little bit of an agenda that I put together. We put together, why grants, get into some grant writing tips, talk about some successful submissions. We'll demo live the PTA portal, and then at the end we can turn off the recording. If anyone wants to brainstorm some ideas or workshop some ideas, toss some text up on the screen, we can get into that. So first off, why grants? And there's one word I always like to say for that, it's leverage, right? None of us are as smart and capable as all of us. So applying for a grant gives you access to like-minded other PTAs. In the case of national, they typically, if you get a national PTA grant, they'll have Zoom calls, virtual calls to kind of bring together all the PTAs and share best practices, help you brainstorm ideas. And then oftentimes with grants, the very first grant I was involved with at Little Run, we won some funds from BBT. They actually provided some volunteers to help with it. It was for landscaping, and then they had some contacts with Merrifield Garden Center, and Merrifield Garden Center supplied 2 workers, and then also helped to 2 workers to help with the planting, some ideas, some plants at cost. And so, if we had tried to go and do that on our own, we would not have been nearly as successful. It would not have gotten nearly as much access to resources as we would have if we had just, gotten a whole bunch of money fundraising on our own. So by going in with a grant, you get leverage from others in your cohort of people, other folks who are not in the PTA, and then of course the money is always nice too, right? So money can help you do some good things. Jenna mentioned that 25 plus K that was involved with getting that was like the equivalent over my 4-year PTA presidency of like having an extra year of funding, if you will. So getting some funds is always nice for doing things. There's usually always, always some conditions, right? So as part of good stewards, you'll need to make sure that you spend the money in the manner for which they're giving you the grant. So if you apply for that landscaping grant, you can't go, use it to build, put a hot tub in the teacher's lounge kind of deal. So you got to use it for what it's was designed for. But that's in my mind like the one constraint. And usually folks that give grants, they give very wide latitude on what they allow you to do with the grant money. They just want you to spend it in a wise and meaningful way, kind of going back to the earlier thing of to make every child's potential a reality. All right, so some grant writing tips. Always a good idea to start with a why, right? Why are you doing this? In the case of the landscaping grant, we had a school that hadn't had any attention paid to the landscaping, what the exterior of the school looked like for years, a lot of overgrown bushes, etc. And so we kind of realize that, hey, let's try and make this place more enticing so that when the kids show up at school, they come into a nice shiny school that gets them excited about learning. And so that sent us down the track of looking for the landscaping type of grant, and that why translated into funds and volunteers and access to plants. So it's always a good idea to start with why. There was a number of grants that I was involved with in the COVID, as COVID was kicking off. We did some food insecurity type of activities. So obviously as the pandemic was gearing up, we were very concerned about our kids who are maybe having less access to food. And if you're worried about food, how much are you going to pay attention to learning? So a good why is a good way to get started. There's many online resources available for formats. I'm a retired Air Force officer in the research arena, so I always love the Hellmeyer questions, ones that we always ask to folks who are submitting proposals to the Air Force. And kind of the interesting background there is that was the head of the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, DARPA, and he got tired of people wandering into his office. And his staff would say, "You just got to fund this guy. He's really smart." It was artificial intelligence back in the 70s, and you just got to fund him. He's really smart. And he'd like, after listening to him talk for an hour, he's like, "Wait, what do they want to do with that? Why should I give them money? How am I going to know money's well spent?" So the Hellmeyer questions kind of cuts very simply to some simple questions. With no jargon. What are you trying to do? How is it done now? Why do you think you'll be successful? And then what's the impact going to be? And so those are kind of questions that I always keep in mind when I'm writing up grants. Just very simple. No like, and jargon doesn't have to be acronyms. It could even be you have some special thing in your school, special mascot. No one knows what your school mascot is, so don't talk about hey, the Cougar Bash thing. Well, try and translate that into something more simple. We have a fall fundraiser. Oh, everyone knows what a fall fundraiser is. People might not know what a cougar bash is, right? So with no jargon, simple terms, just what are you trying to do? Trying to have a fall festival, or trying to help prevent help feed our kids, help make our school look shinier. How is it done not wrong? What's going on now that you need to change? The kids are not getting the weekend food because we're in COVID lockdown. We have a bunch of overgrown bushes. And then why do you think we'll be successful? Well, with a little bit of money, we can do a food pantry. We can put in some better plants, and then if we're successful, what will be the impact? The kids will be more excited about learning. The kids will be fed so that they can learn better, right? So Helmar questions, there's a whole bunch of others. If you search on the web on how to write a grant, there'll be all kinds of things that'll pop up on how to do it properly. So that's kind of like the format, right? And usually there's word limits on these things. Folks don't want to read like 10 pages, right? Because a lot of times these people are busy too. They're volunteers, whatever. So for National PTA, they make it a 250 word limit, which maybe that sounds like a lot. It's amazing how quickly that 250 words goes. Short sentences, and that's the bottom thing, the mechanics. Short sentences, keep it simple. Use numbers where appropriate. If you're the second, for Little Run, we're the second smallest school, 250 kids. How many kids? What's the percentage on free and reduced lunch program? All that kind of, the numbers kind of can help kind of clarify what's going on. In the grant, right, in the military business, science world, we often would say if you can't quantify it in numbers, you don't really have a firm grasp on what you're trying to do, right? So that's a little bit about kind of the metrics of it all, right? Well, if you have 25% of your kids on free and reduced lunches, and wow, then you can kind of tell right away how much you're going to need to raise or whatever. And we need X number of plants around the school. It helps to show that you've kind of thought through things, and the person giving the grant has some a good solid feel that what you're going to be doing, or you have an idea of what's going on. How you're trying to achieve success. And then the bottom bullet, start early. You coordinate with your local PTA board. I take zero pride in authorship. I do the best job I can, get the first draft done, and then I Google Drive or something so that you can do quickly joint editing of it. The worst is to have the 20 email thread of everyone submitting, piling on with their changes, and maybe you got it all right. So if you use something like Google Drives, where you can just send a link, here's where the file is, give everyone edit privileges so that they can just go make the changes. Oops, you misspelled the word, you got the grammar wrong. You said 170 schools. Debbie will probably correct me on the number, 176 or whatever. So you get things correct, right? Don't let that hold you up. Ballpark it, right? The people giving the grants, they have no idea if you're the second or third smallest school, if you have 170 PTAs versus 160. Try and use some general numbers, and then if people can help you drill down and get those better, then more power to you, right? But definitely, there's nothing like a team, your board, your committee chairs, other people on your PTA to help you figure things out. Another person to admit. So then, yeah, and then getting into the a couple of the successful examples. I've talked a little bit about this, the landscaping grant to make our elementary school pop, and the BBT and Merrifield Garden Center that help with volunteers and with plants. Safeway for food, and Safeway, the grocery store, they had a food insecurity grant. We got that for a Little Run. Number of big box scores, I've kind of lost track of the numbers that we had. A lot of times they might, if you just go to like your local Walmart or Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever, and say, hey, we're a PTA, we're getting ready to do X. It would be really, we see you sell canopies in the back. Would you be willing to donate a few to our PTA? A grant, a grant for that. A lot of times the big box stores or whatever, they'll have a grant program, and you submit your application. A lot of times those might be like just $500, but $500, especially for a small school, can go a long way. And sometimes they'll give you things that cost. So that $500 might really be more like you might have needed to raise $800 or $1,000 to get $500 worth of stuff. So a lot of leverage sometimes with that. Small businesses too. They can be they can be they're always glad to get their names in print, because you'll want to advertise the people who gave you the grants, right? So everyone knows where that came from. So if you get a grant from your local hardware store, then by all means stick their name in your PTA newsletter, etc. Try and help them, and that'll make them more excited about helping you. And then the big one, and why we kind of did this whole thing in kind of a short timeline, because National PTA has a deadline coming up. Is it, I think, September 27th? It's like next week. So they have a very it's like grant writing season, right? So that's where my PTA Little Run, we were most successful with getting our largest numbers, right? But I talked a little bit about some of the COVID ones, the food insecurity grant. We got a bunch of money for vaccine clinics. We got a diversity and inclusion grant. That was a smaller one, like $500-ish. But that enabled us to that was about doing listening sessions, and the money was the idea with the money was to have a stipend for people to show up at your listening sessions, so you could kind of get some ideas on how to be better in diversity. The food and security grants in each of these phase 1 and 2, those were $5,000 a piece. So those first 2 lines represent $15,000 of funds that flowed into our PTA. And so sometimes they can be fairly big dollars. And then this FCC PTA Family Engagement Partnership grant, we just kicked that one off. That's I think we're splitting $2,500 with SEPTA. So again, some good money to do things. So National PTA, and we'll in a minute we'll get into that. They have a portal, and I think that's my next slide. Yeah, no, at the end we have the portal, but National PTA has a portal, and that's where you would submit your application. They also had on the 8th of September, they had a session, Q&A session that's unrecorded and available to listen to. And there's another one coming up this Friday. I think I didn't listen to it, but Jenna said she did. And the biggest message there was just submit something. If you answer the questions and you submit something, that'll get you in, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Michael Jordan, right? So if you just submit something and you answer the kind of the rubric, the questions they have answered, and even put in, we're not really sure, we think we might do X or Y, always give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Don't say exactly what you're going to do, say the types of things you want to do, so that if you need to change along the way, you don't feel like you're missing the mark. Successful examples, and this is a little bit of an eye chart here, but this is what we submitted for the FCC PTA Family Engagement Partnership Grant, the one that we just got. And I put all this text in, not to be a wall of text. I'm not going to read this to you. You guys can kind of read it at your own speed. But I kind of bolded a few of the things that we put in here. But the key thing here is it was 3 questions, each 250 words, right? So this paragraph was one of 3 paragraphs that we wrote that helped us get that grant, right? So and so talking about numbers, we put in that the 10th largest school district in the nation. This is talking about example of how you collaborate and be an advocate. So we talked about how we changed this policy. We talked about town halls, helping with family choice, and championing the survey, right? So you can see there's not a whole lot here. We just listed half dozen examples, and poof, there we go, example 1. And this was one where I didn't really know the history, but Jenna and Debbie and others on FCC PTA who had been there for a while, they helped kind of fill in some of the other details here. Question 2, what was this one about? How will you collaborate, right? So this is our biggest section. This is where they're asking what you wanted to do, right? And so you'll see, if you kind of read through some of the details on this, we never said exactly we will do this, because we don't want to pin ourselves down, and if we need to change, we don't want to feel like we misrepresented things. So, just talking in general, we're going to use it to organize training and outreach sessions. You'll see that, we'll use funds for facility rental, food recessions, stipends, guest speakers, and other training. So we're not completely nailing ourselves down, right? But talking about some of what we're going to do here. We'll work with this group or similar groups, right? So if we need to pivot to something else, we can do it. There's over 170 schools. We're going to use the ambassador program. We're going to work with teachers unions, so we're kind of listing a number of things. We're not going to say exactly that we're going to do these all, but this gives the National PTA people the idea that we've thought through a little bit of how we would use the money, so that they have a warm fuzzy that will be successful with our efforts. And then why now, right? So, and then we put a little bit about coming out of the pandemic, renewed interest, virtual meetings. Oh, hey, there's Debbie. And then the fact that we just have a new superintendent. So, again, you can see 3 questions, 250 words each. The words go fast, right? But you don't have to write a novel here. It's just give a few bullets. No jargon. Don't be too complicated in your answers, and poof, away you go. So that's the examples, and then the National PTA portal. We'll demo this in a second. There's the link to it, but if you just search on National PTA grants, it'll pop up. They have, these are all the ones that are due on the 27th. There's a number here, a whole almost a dozen different topics that they're offering grants in. So some of these are like internet related type things. Some are for elementary schools, a couple of STEM related. So there's a number of different things, and to make it easy too, there's one application for all of these categories. So don't say you're going to do all 10 of them, right? Pick a couple, like we would want to do healthy minds and reading and PTA connected, and then in your 250 words times 3, your 3 blocks of text, you would put in what you would do if you got X or Y or Z. And then these are the questions that they want you to answer, right? What are the barriers? What are the barriers that keep you from running effective programs? What barriers do you anticipate? They give some examples, and then how do you plan to use this grant to fund these barriers, right? To overcome these barriers. So, again, 250 words, you don't need to write a novel, just a couple of ideas of, what barriers you've had, and then how you'd use the money, right? Community needs, how are you going to determine what the problems are? And then, how will you know that you met those needs, right? So surveys, listening sessions, they kind of are half giving you the answer here, right? If you parrot back some of what they put here, they'd be like, oh yeah, you're paying attention. You're not asking to, put the hot tub in the courtyard of your school. And then how will you be fully engaged with the community, right? So, so again, just 3 short questions, 250 words each. Don't write a novel, get in, get out. So yeah, so that's the brief. Let me demo the portal here. So any questions while I'm bringing that up? Let's see. I haven't been watching the chat. Yeah, slides. Yeah, happy to share the slides.
No. Yeah, no questions yet,
Okay.
Charles. I think maybe once we get into the grant portal, I know I have a question. I'm going to wait till you pull that up.
Yep. So
sorry, Charles. Colleen has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Yep,
I was just gonna jump in and ask, because I know, Charles, that you have your screen sharing up. Do you think that National does a good job of sharing grants that are available, or should we have someone on our local schools be on the lookout for potential grants or programs outside of National PTA?
So I'm always an all of the above kind of person, right? So National PTA, they'll have these partners, and so like the COVID grants, they wound up getting $1.5 million, and then from that, the grantor, I forget who it was at this point, and then they helped to distribute it and do the cohorts and the virtual setups. You know, things like, you know, the Safeway grant or your Home Depot grants, whatever, National PTA is not going to have awareness on those, right? So
Okay.
so it's not a bad idea if you have, you know, a big enough PTA to have, or, you know, maybe your secretary or someone who has a little bit of a passion for it, your treasurer, you know, to have someone be looking at the National PTA portal, or look, you know, be on the lookout for your big box stores, etc. So so yeah, so National does a great job, right? I mean, most of, to be frank, of that 25-ish K that Little Run got, you know, over 15K, 20K of it came from National PTA, so a healthy chunk. So then once you kind of get in and you get logged into the portal, I believe they occasionally would push out info, and then there's also the National PTA emails. They obviously highly advertise that they have grants coming up in those National PTA emails. So
Okay.
so yeah, so a little bit of both, right? Both National and others. And if you're signed up, if you're getting, you know, routine emails from National PTA, you know, if you know, you should be seeing the stuff about grants that are popping up.
Thanks for that, Charles. And
Yeah.
I'll ask Debbie and Jenna if you guys have any different experiences or any tips that you can share. That would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
Thank
go
you,
ahead,
guys.
Jenna, Debbie, anything to add there?
I was just going to say at National has just always tried to target the local units to receive the majority of the grants that they offer. They do occasionally offer council and state associations to apply, which FCC PTA recently applied. Thank you, Charles, for doing that. Also Fairfax County Council, SEPTA, applied. And because we're in the same area, they kind of split the grant between our two groups, our two PTAs. But, you know, my experience when we had Northern Virginia District, I actually applied for a grant as a district level PTA, and we got a total of about $4,500 over a couple of year span for different grants. So I just would keep an eye out on this particular webpage. But also, as Charles said, they really do want to promote it, and they'll put it on social media too. So that's kind of another place if you follow National PTA. Or if you are in some of the, like a local leaders PTA Facebook group, you will hear what's going on and what's available through National PTA. So I would say stay connected.
Thank you, Debbie. That's some great input. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yep. Okay, so can you all see this screen that I'm sharing, the grants portal page? Okay, good. So yeah, so, you know, I already signed in, so you don't have to watch me fumble with passwords and whatever. But if you haven't, you know, there's just, you know, click to join, and it's just, I mean, they're pretty easy. I think you can just sign up. I don't think anyone has to admit you even. So you just go to the login page, you put your email, or is this a new or, you know, existing account? Oh, I need a new account. Okay, great. Set a password and you're in, right? So and then, you know, they have a couple of different tabs across the top here, but right now the grants, and, you know, and that's the link I had on the slides there. And, you know, I think Jenna, you probably threw that in the chat already, right? If not, we'll put that in the chat. But and then, yeah, and then here's, you know, active grants that they have, the fall program ones. These ones are kind of a smaller like Life Achievement and Hearst. I think those are more specialized, just, you know, just a couple of folks get those. But, you know, the fall program, this is the one that Jenna said on their Q&A session this Thursday, September 8th one. Everyone kept asking, what's the probability we're going to get something? And they kept saying, if you just fill out the form, you are very highly likely to get something. So they're just trying to give money away. And sometimes what will happen too with these grants is they'll say that it's, we want, we're imagining we're going to award 30 schools. So, and we got $1 million. So do the math, I don't know, whatever that is, $5,000 a school. And then, maybe they only get 20 schools. They're like, oh, did we say 5,000? We meant 7,500. Or, maybe they get 40 schools. Oh, maybe not quite 5,000. We're going to have to, make that only $4,000 because we wanted to give it to more schools, right? So they're telling you about what it is, but don't look that gift horse in the mouth, right? So yeah, and so that's they have their training coming up this Friday. They had one the 8th, if that one's recorded, and then here's the fall grant. So if we click on this apply now, this will take you to the platform, and it talks about the different programs that they have. I had those on the slides already, right? The Healthy Minds, and they tell you a little bit about it, right? And so as you're looking through these, make that a little bigger here. As you start reading through these things, right? Start thinking about, okay, well, this is what they're trying to give it for. So again, it's a reading award. I'm not going to build a hot tub, right? So, try and think of how you're going to answer the question to make them want to give that to you. They got this stuff about the smart talk, this is about internet safety type of things. And then here's the STEM ones, right? Now this one, Virginia is not one of these schools, so these states. So unfortunately we can't apply for that one. But that's just one of several, right? Here's that Internet Awesome thing, tobacco-free prevention campaign. This is, the programs for high school, connected with kindness, right? So here's all the different ones that you have. So, right. So then you figure out, okay, I'm going to do Healthy Minds and STEM and, tobacco cessation maybe, right? So then you click here to apply, and then is this going to work? Maybe.
It should work. Try, because you're logged in, Charles.
Yeah, I am logged in. So here we go. And so you can see the other applications. If we clicked on one of those, that would show in fact, this complete one is that family partnership, one that we talked about that we just worked. The incomplete, this is the one I just started on it just to see what it looked like. So we'll edit this one, right? But you apply, right? And I mean, so the first part is just boilerplate, right? Like contact information, first name, last name, PTA, emails, race, ethnicity, and all this other random stuff. What PTA number? They do have this thing where they want your PTA ID. If you click on try our PTA search here, let's see if I can get that to pop up without popping me out. But they have a way to find what your 8-digit number is. So, and even if you can't, I think it is required. It is a required field. But yeah, so you got to pop in your go through that search thing. You put in the name of your school, it pops up. You put that number in, and then names, addresses, school demographic, and they say even in here, do not be concerned if it's outdated or does not appear. This is actually auto-populated, so you don't even have to worry about that. Are you Title I? Title I is remind me of Title I. That's like lower income income schools, right? So and then they want a couple of contacts. Always recommend you fill in all three. Put yourself, your president, treasurer, just a couple of people that would care, right? And then so that's the first page. So that's that's just the admin of it, right? Takes you just a couple of minutes to get through that. And then
Hey, Charles.
Yep, go ahead.
So we pause here for a second? I don't know if folks are trying to log in or if they just want to listen to this, but I did have a couple of technical questions because this is where it's easy until it's not easy. And Debbie, you might actually know the answer to this. So when I searched by my school, at first it didn't seem to come up, but then it did. And the reason why it was wonky was because it's showing our address as the Virginia PTA office. So I asked somebody in our at my school to make sure that our Member Hub address was correct. And they told me that it is correct in Member Hub. So I don't know why we're showing up as Wilmer Avenue in Richmond. So right away, I'm sort of like, okay, I'm stumped. I can't do the grant, I can't do the grant. I mean, I started it 2 weeks ago. Now I've already come into this problem. I suspect, this could be, again, something that's so simple. If there's any technical or member hub issues, it's like this brick wall, that you immediately encounter.
Jenna, I would say that National PTA doesn't, our member hub is for state use, and then, we send information on it. So it's probably, it's probably correct in your member hub, but it's not reflecting here. I think National PTA, and I can certainly bring this up, probably, and I'd like to be interested in other states. Do they list the state address for all of their units? And just because maybe they just don't have the local unit addresses, but that's something we can find out even from national, where because they have this set up. My thoughts too is your national PTA ID number is the number that you were given, and if you were doing membership cards, that's the number that would show up on it. So that is your tracking number, is that national PTA ID number, which if you have it, you don't even have to go search for it, so but I'll make a note and find out. Or Charles, is this something, are you meeting with the National PTA as well?
I'm not, but I'm happy to help as needed, right? I mean,
Okay.
so yeah.
Yeah, because if anybody else has this issue, once it pulls me up, the PTA ID is correct, but it doesn't let me change the address. It autofills that address. And so it's saying we're a high school in Falls Church, but according to this, we're a high school in Richmond, Virginia. So it just gives me a pause.
Yeah. And it won't matter at some level because they do everything virtually, right? So if they have your email address, they can figure the rest out, right? I would, don't let that stop you. And here's, in fact, you can see here, let me guess, this Wilmer Avenue is, so these must be all, that must be the Virginia, right? So here's all you guys are seeing this on my screen. These are, there's clearly a lot of schools in Richmond, and look, what do you know? A whole lot of schools at Wilmer Ave in Richmond, right? So
yeah, that's interesting that there are some specific addresses for Richmond, but a lot of, I think it's probably mostly from our area, are listed under Wilmer. So, but that's a great point.
Yeah,
and, send that so we can get that sorted out for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and that's just page 1. Next.
Well,
So,
there's going to be hundreds of pages.
Yeah. No, but this is all the ones that are supposed to be in Richmond.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I just searched on Richmond. I just put in Richmond and then Virginia, right? And it's more than one. It's more than one page. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. So
okay, we'll get that sorted out for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So
thanks.
But yeah.
Thanks,
so
Jenna.
and having said all that too, don't see a join URL for your PTA, contact your state PTA, or if you're a PTA leader, you can update your PTA's info there. So so it looks like there's a way to do all this. And in fact, I mean, I don't know, can we do justice as online PTA member? Yes, I don't know what all this is supposed to be, but I don't want to mess with Justice's PTA info, but it looks like there's a way to redress that info like that. So yeah, and if do you have off the top of your head what was Justice's? We can pop in Justice. You just said Justice, right? There we go. Justice.
That's okay. I can fix that. I mean, I can work on this offline. I just wanted people to be aware that, that happens to them. It's also happening to me, and flag it as something to potentially follow up.
But if we use Justice as the example here, right? So I'll take their unit number 145 582, and where is it? This page, right? And if I go back to the previous page, right? Search by, if I put that number in, that's what that 14582, and it should, yep, and then there we go. I can pop that up, right? And then it's gonna put in, there's that Wilmer Ave, Richmond, you know, if everything's correct. In fact, well, look, it has all your white enrollment, black enrollment mixed, you know, it auto fills all that stuff for you, right? So, and I would say, again, don't be alarmed if you're like, oh, that's not our address or whatever, because, you know, there's going to be other spots, other chances to update this, other portals to update this all in. And at the end of the day, it's your email address that will matter. So.
Yep. And we'll get that addressed as well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And then the second thing, I already popped up what those questions were, right? So you just, and what I recommend you do is you work on these questions offline, you know, a Google form, Google Drive with your PTA board, right? And get these answers. And so that when you're ready to submit, you just copy and paste it into this thing. I would not recommend using this as your editor, right? But just create it somewhere else in a Google Drive. And then just when you're ready to submit, you just copy and paste it into here. If you have too many words, it will cut you off. So, you know, the 250 thing is kind of self-critiquing. I thought it cut you off at some point. I guess not.
It should. Oh,
it
wow.
should.
It should.
But yeah. Oh, it says, there you go. Please enter more than 250 words. So it does no better. It won't let you speed. So the speed limit's 250 words. You cannot drive 251 words, right? So, and then, yeah, so just copy and paste your answers to those 3 questions in there. And then in this case, because they want to make it easy, right? So which one of these are you going to do? We're going to do Healthy Minds and the Smart Talk and, you know, whatever, family reading, right? And then what else happened? They want a little bit more. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oops. So once you click on each of those 3 things, they want to know a little bit more specific on Healthy Minds. Oh, so this is one of those forms that once you click, it pops up another page, right?
So Charles, be careful how many you click on. Is that right?
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Because each of these ones that you click on, I didn't fully test out this website before. Each one of these you click on, it pops up a new box, right? So you got your 3 main boxes, right? You got your barriers and equity, your community needs, and your family and community engagement. Those are generals for all your ones. And then, oh, you want to do Healthy Minds, then it pops up this box. So I didn't actually, yeah. And so you need to write a paragraph for each of these that you're going to work on as well. So, which is fair, right? They want to know, okay, what are you going to do specifically for the Healthy Minds program?
And you know what, Charles, when you were listing all of those, the grade levels, I was really impressed to see so many for middle and high school levels, because normally a lot of these grants are tailored for the elementary level. And so it's really good. I'm hoping our middle and high schools do apply for these. And there's some great programs to engage our students.
Yep. And then you can see that, you know, once you've got all this figured out, hopefully I'm not scrolling too fast, save and finalize, and you're done, right? I mean, it's 2 pages. Again, the first page is all your contact information. The second page is these 3 questions plus, you know, a question for each of the specific grants you're gonna apply for. You know, 1,000 words in your contact information, and poof, you know, you could have you know, an extra X amount of dollars for your PTA.
And Charles, I had a question. Do you receive a confirmation email?
Yes, you do. It'll kick something out at the end so that you know it worked. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty much all there is to it, right? So, and this is the one that we did for the that family engagement grant, right? And so just to show you what one that looks like that's already filled out, right? You know, there's the phone number, there's, you know, the demographic, there's our addresses, and then here's the questions, and this is the stuff I had in the slides, and that's all it took. So
So Charles, we have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
It says it doesn't look like a budget is needed, and
That's correct. Yep.
That's correct, because you really can't anticipate receiving these funds, if
Yep.
you haven't gotten it. But it doesn't hurt to have a budget line for donations or grants, and
Yep.
because you might get them from other local organizations or something. And then you can always amend your budget anytime if it's more than $500 by general
Yeah.
membership vote. So
Yeah.
anytime during the year.
Yep. Yeah, and there's no budget required for these grants because they get it that they're trying to make it easy, and they get it that you might not have your mind made up ahead of time, right? So, and that's a little bit of actually like this family engagement thing. We have we have a couple of meetings with National PTA where they'll help us brainstorm in it. And I know at some point they're going to be like, oh, okay, that's great brainstorming. Now, what are you going to do? And narrow in on what it is. But in general, all the grants that I've gotten from National PTA, they never got into our business as to how we were actually spending the money.
Yeah, they're very flexible, right?
Yeah.
Even with
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you got those large amounts.
Yeah, their only restrictions was no alcohol, no tobacco, and something else, maybe no lottery tickets. I don't even remember. But yeah, and that was it. Just if you can squint sideways, and if you were to get audited, be able to be happy and confident and say, yep, we were spending it in the right thing, you're fine, right? And no one ever asked to see your books.
And Charles, also Jenna had a question.
Yep.
When will the fall grant recipients be announced?
Yeah, and we don't know. I don't think they put it in this thing. Generally, they need a couple of weeks to figure it out. So that's a little bit up in the air, but yeah, and sometimes it's volunteers that are working on the selection process, so it could take a while.
Another question, yeah, who should we contact if they have questions? You're asking VA PTA office. I would say it depends on your question, but I would assume if you have questions about the grant, it really probably should go to National PTA.
Yep.
Is that right?
National PTA. Yep. National PTA. Obviously, I can help a little bit if you want. So between the two, there's ways to get answers out there. So, but I've never actually felt the need to ask a question. I just submitted stuff and was just amazed that they would throw money at us.
And we had another question about interest in the Healthy Minds program.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you reading that, Charles?
Yeah. Bring specialists to teach about healthy mental health for children. Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, write that up.
Yeah.
Can you be too generic? I mean, obviously, 250 words, right? So there's, if you only give them 30 words, they might be like, these people haven't thought through what they're going to spend it on. So spend a little bit of time, but 100, 150 words, that can be fine, right? Don't feel the need to use all 250 words, but be as general as be as specific as you can, while not boxing yourselves into a corner, right? Mm-hmm. So, and so what you might say is, we want to do things like bringing mental health specialists and maybe also, having a program for teachers in the school, and get our, and lean on FCPS, get our nurse involved, our school counselor involved, right? That's the other, we talked at the very beginning about leverage being a good reason for doing the grants, right? Leverage your school resources as well. Run it by your principal and say, hey, who else in the school could help out with this, right? And maybe there's someone at SCPS that could come in and help give some of these briefings, right?
That would be, and then you can make it like a community engagement event to where everybody comes. You maybe feed them, use your money to feed them. and or have other kind of activities, free things, because this is a way to engage your school community, right? It with this grant funding. So, and Charles, you make it sound so easy. So how is that?
I mean, I literally, a couple of hours, I do my best writing after like 9 p.m. when the kids are all in bed, but a couple of hours, a lot of these things, it was the skeleton that people would see that, like, Jenna and Debbie, the one that they wrote up, it was like an hour's worth of work, at 9:30 p.m. after all the kids are in bed. I spend an hour banging away something. I shoot it out to the rest of the board. They comment on it, make it better, and poof, we submit and we're done, right? So it doesn't have to be hard, right? You're not writing a dissertation. This is not a master's thesis, right? You just need 200 words, 250 words, right? Don't make it.
But I do think, Charles, you are a great resource to have, since you have every year you have requested and received different kind of national and state PTA awards, and you're just really diligent about looking for things and then actually taking action on them. So, we can't force you to take action, but if you see something, I think, Charles, you made this comment, if you don't apply, you'll get zero, right? You'll get nothing if you never apply. So you have to apply at least, and you might just really benefit. Your community really might benefit. So,
and sometimes too, if they see that, if they can tell you're maybe struggling a little bit, they might reach out to you and for some feedback, right? And say, hey, tell us a little bit more about this idea that you were going to work on. And I know in the very beginning, the very first grant, that landscaping grant, they came, we submitted like 4 pages. They didn't give the 250-page limit for that, but it was like a 4-page thing, and we had like the landscaping diagrams and where we were going to put the plants and all this, and we applied for, I don't know, $5,000, and they came back and said, well, so what could you do with $3,500? And so we're like, well, we could still do something, right? And so we scaled back and picked different plants and resubmitted, and poof, it came through, right? So there don't think too that this is like a one and done, right? There might be a little bit of an opportunity for a go back depending on who the grant is and who you're working with, right? They might come back and say, hey, tell us a little more, or could you expand a little on that? That's kind of what we had in mind.
And Jenna has her hand raised.
I told you I was here not just to help co-host, but for my own school, for my own needs as well. So, at the high school level, it's a little bit different. Your PTA board might not be as big because you have all the booster clubs and different things. So what's your suggestion in terms of sort of getting approval from the board? I mean, it looks like, if we're going to do this at my school, I just need to do it and write it and submit it. We haven't had a board meeting. We haven't had a general membership meeting. I mean, there's nothing, I can't imagine why somebody would be against us getting this money on the board. But what do you recommend in terms of process and approval?
Yeah, so obviously if there's a grants chair with your PTA, talk with them, right? Run it by them. If there's, run it by your president, of course, your PTA president. At the end, if you are successful, if you're selected, they have you send in 2 forms. One is like your avoided check and how to send you the money, but then they also send like a 2-page like acknowledgement that your PTA president has to sign, right? And here's what's involved, and here's what you're signing up for, because like in the case of National PTA, and like the COVID grants, they're like, and you have to, they said you have to run a vaccination clinic, and you have to commit to attending 3 of these 6 meetings on these dates, and so and have one like bring in a pediatrician to talk. So you had to agree to do those 3 things: the pediatrician, the vax clinic, and participate in three calls, right? And so so obviously if you come to your PTA president and say, yep, I'm on board, I'm willing to run this and make this happen, then the PTA president should, he or she should be like, yep, sounds good, sign up for it. Now, in the military, we used to say you have to, be prepared to eat what you kill, right? So, kind of a hunting credo, if you will, right? So if you're going to go to all the trouble to apply for, make sure you're going to have some skin in the game to be willing to do the work to make it happen. And and occasionally maybe the PTA president, they might say, hey, that's great that you want to do this grant, but my vision for the year is to do XYZ instead, and so, you still have to, you still do need to respect your local process, right? Like, if because your PTA president will have to sign off for the National PTA grants. For like a Walmart grant or something else where they're just giving you money to buy, I don't know, pop-up tents, whatever, maybe it's not required, although maybe your PTA president is like, so Jenna, are you going to be willing to store those in your garage because our PTA closet is full, right? So but yeah, I always recommend you talk to your board and make sure your PTA president is on board.
Right. And we had another, I think, a request of you, Charles, of quick tips on being effective and having a strong message. They're a little concerned that they have no experience in writing grants, and any tip would be greatly appreciated. I would have to say you don't have to have experience on writing grants because you are just answering questions, correct? Yep. Based on what your PTA has done or would love to do, right? So right. This is like a wish list. If we had the money, this is what we could do.
Yep.
But you might have some other, you probably have some other great tips.
Yeah. Kind of what I said in the beginning, jargon free, be simple, get in, get out, get on with it. Right. So, going back to the questions, right. Barriers and equity, right. Like a barrier, so, talk a little bit about, you can talk a little bit about your school and, what problems have you had either getting volunteers or getting effective programs going, right? Because, PTA is not a fundraising thing. We're an advocacy organization, right? So have you been successful in advocating for your kids? So putting in a little bit about that kind of stuff is is question one. And so I mean, I guess maybe what I could offer too, right? If you have a few things and you want to email me some ideas, I'm happy to kind of take a look and give you some suggestions after you kind of run through the questions, right? So because at some level they're trying to spoon feed you a little bit here, answer these questions and try and be a little bit specific without overdoing it. And that's pretty much about all they're looking for. One thing you can see in the, where'd it go? If you look in the website, they do have the rubric listed at some point. I don't recall off the top of my head where it is, but incomplete. If I can't find it quickly, who knows, but yeah, they'll talk a little bit about what they're looking for in your answer, but you'll see that there's not, if you can find that somewhere in here, I don't even know where it went, but
it might just be on the home, on the other page.
On the home thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But running through the rubric, that's kind of them telling you what the answers to the test are, right? If you say that you will advocate for, you get 1 point. If you say how you'll advocate, you get 2 points. They kind of tell you how they're going to pick it, right? So try and answer the mail is I guess what the answer is to that.
Right.
Does that help a little bit? I don't know if I answered the question, but.
And that was from Barbara. So Barbara, did that help?
Barbara, do you want to come off mute and just, or did that help any?
She's giving a thumbs up.
She's giving a thumbs up. Okay. So
that's
yeah.
Good.
Yep. But yeah, and happy to, that my awards at fccpta.org, happy to give a second set of eyes on your application.
And this video will be sent out to those who registered, right, Jenna?
Jenna, yep, she's off doing something else. But yeah, we're recording this video, so
we'll be able to send it to everybody who registered.
Oh, here you go. Applicants will be judged through a double-blind review process using this rubric, right?
Ah, there you go.
So this is the answers to the quiz.
Ooh, I like that.
I always used to tell, when I was on active duty, I tell my dudes, the PT test, the physical training test, it's the simplest test there is. They give you the answers ahead of time. Can you run 2 miles in this amount of time, right? Can you do this many push-ups? You have a stopwatch, just do this at home, right? You remember that from your Army days, right? Then
Yeah, I do.
taking
I
the
do.
PT test. It's
Oh
an
my
open book
gosh.
test. Yeah.
Yeah, but the 4 mile was really kind of challenging.
Yeah.
So
So
in a certain amount of time.
you got a stopwatch. Go run on a track. Can you run 4
And
miles?
this is really an important document too for everybody to
Yep.
have because just have that as your reference.
Yep. So this is telling you the answers, right? So question 1 to get all 4 points, right? And so I guess they're looking, if you're looking to get 12 points all total, right? The answer clearly explains the barrier and how their PTA will address these barriers and provides concrete examples of how their PTA will use this grant fund to address these barriers, right? So,
and you know what, guys, don't get overwhelmed thinking this is a lot to review and you have to hit every single thing. Take from it what you will benefit you, right? Because I know sometimes we give you more than you ever need as a resource to do something, but that's okay. We're just trying to be sure you have all the information that you need to do it well and be successful. So thanks for finding that, Charles.
Yep. Got a questions here. I think you went to Michael Shader. Yeah. He and I were buds back at ROTC back in the day. Tell him Charles say hi. Charles said hi.
I will definitely tell him.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
So I was going to say, is there any other questions? I'm not sure. Was this supposed to be?
I think it was supposed to be an hour, right? Yeah.
From 7 to 8. But if there's any questions from anybody, if you guys, you can unmute, you raise your hand, unmute. Otherwise, it looks like we're going to have a lot of applications coming from Fairfax.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent.
And that would be great. Yeah.
Yep. All right, Jenna, if you want to maybe stop the recording so we can see if there's anyone who wants to ask any questions that won't be saved forever on a digital recording. So yeah, thank you. This will end the recording. So thanks everyone for